лекция Media and Design Conf, последние выступающие, но не менее приятный гость. Наш гость из Амстердама, руководитель независимого издательства Edition Edits и основатель дизайн-студии имени себя. Пожалуйста, встречайте. Sarp. Welcome. Microphone.
Hello, it's Sarp. So is it like too close or too far away from my mouth? I don't know.
Okay.
Well, since that I'm very self-conscious, I know that the size of my head is like too big to accommodate any one of those microphones, like neck microphones, so you have to deal with this. So, yeah, shape of things. So, by the way, you know, I'm still going through the aftermath of cold, and I feel like the surface of my skin is really flaking off and is about to come off any minute now. So I may not be able to make sense with words in the next 40 minutes, but anyway, you really have to deal with it. So, the shape of things. So, I'm not very good also with time management, and I know that I only have 40 minutes. As you can see, you know, I just keep on talking and talking, and my presentation might be too long or too short. I'm not sure which, but I feel like it's a little bit too long. So feel free to stop me once we hit the 40-minute mark, and I can just stop talking. So the shape of things. The reason why I titled my presentation that way is because that, I mean, there's a craze going on in the world right now about new media technologies, how it really evolves the way that we perceive the world, we perceive the design, and so on and on. But in the end, history is out there to constantly remind us, repeatedly remind us that it's actually all the same thing at the end of the day, and it only the way we deliver these ideas or the way we deliver these thoughts or emotions are what changes at the end of the day. So today I'm going to talk about how I really perceive old media and new media through the way I look at the world and through the way I look at myself, which is the way this presentation starts, the shape of me. Well, recently I found out that I mean, for different reasons, I used 3 different emails at the same time, and it kind of evolved over time without really having my control over it, and there was always this reason or that really pushed me to use either one of these emails for different purposes. And I realized that even the way that I present myself to the way is actually differing up to the reasons that I shape it around. So the first email that I use is my personal email address, sarp.sozdinler@gmail.com, which I use for friendly exchanges and so on. And as you can see, it's, you know, it's one of those photos that you don't give a fuck, and it's like, you know, not maybe friendly. I was going to use the word friendly, but now I kind of realize that it's not so friendly. But it's the friendliest photo that I have, so you really have to deal with it again. And the other email address that I use is info@sarpsozdinler.com, at which I use this, you know, heavily edited black and white artistic impression of a portrait photography in a way. So that, I mean, the reason why I launched this email address was because that I could communicate with my clients through the one-person design studio that I launched back in 2014. And I mean, it was the initial reason why I launched this email address, but over time, you know, I started to use it for newsletters and subscriptions and so, God knows what else as well. So, and 4 months ago, I got married with this beautiful woman over there and moved to Amsterdam together to start working with Wieden+Kennedy. And at Wieden, on my first day at the studio, they just placed me before a dark gray background which they use for all the newcomers. and just instantly photographed me there without me even knowing what's really going on at the moment. And this is the, this is the outcome of that photo. And this is the photo that I use for the most serious and business-like email address that I use right now. And I mean, from this point going to this point takes almost over a decade. And also, I mean, I still use these 3 photographs and 3 email addresses so that whenever I feel like the most business-like, I use this email address with this photograph. But whenever I feel like, I mean, let's say sending a cat gif or something like that, or emailing my mother, even though my mother doesn't even have an email address, I use this email and so on. So even I have different 3 layers of representing myself in a world that has found over the past few centuries to represent itself on a plethora of levels in a way. And I mean, I can see that these dilemmas has actually shaped the way I produce as much as they shape the way I consume the works that other people did as well. And the reason why that I chose this presentation title was to discuss how I perceive those works as a viewer, as a consumer of the culture, and also how I look at the briefs that I receive from my client or my collaborators in a way that they could make sense. And so yeah, I should stop talking right now about it, and just start the presentation right away, otherwise it's going to go on and on. So the first layer of new old media thingy that I really want to talk about is called System Error. Actually, it's the title of a workshop series that I've been holding with a very valuable colleague of mine called Erman Yılmaz. He is also a type designer, a graphic designer, and the thinker of the culture in a way. And the System Error project is actually focused on another project that this guy on the screen, this on the right-hand side, you can see has designed like a decade ago or something. His name is Sang Moon. He is a designer. He's a graduate of the New York School of Visual Arts. And the really peculiar thing about Sang Moon is that before becoming a designer, he was actually working at the NSA, National Security Agency of the United States of America, as a South Korea analyst. So he is very much familiar with the methods that the online information is being processed and cataloged and so on. And after becoming a designer himself, he used these skills, these surveillance skills that the governments are using on their own citizens in a way to shape that methods in a way that he could overcome and turn into a typographic project or a typographic element that everyone in the world can use. So the main question that he's basing his project on is, can typography be used as a tool of personal privacy? By which I mean is that, well, there's a typeface family that Sang Moon has designed, which is named ZXX, which in the library of outcomes of surveillance means that no linguistic content, which means, for example, you are sending an email to your mother, and then online surveillance spider really begins to scan your communication. And after recognizing what letters you are using in those emails, by trying to follow the most conventional descriptions for how these letters are being shaped, this spider surveillance system really understands what content you try to deliver and catalogs them, and you are kind of, once again, stripped of your own personal privacy on the online realm. So what he tries to do by it is to create a typeface which you can use to hide your own textual content, to hide your own online fingerprint while you are trying to use while communicating with other people. So these are a really quick review of the different styles of the ZXX typeface that Sang-moon has designed. And it comes with 5 different styles, including the most conventional regular sans cut of the letters, which you can see behind all these disruptions and so on as the sole letter forms. So the different styles of this typeface is that the first of which is camo, which takes its name from the word camouflage, and which takes its references from the animals, in the wild animals, which has the capacity to camouflage themselves out there with their textures, skin textures, furs, and so on. And the second of which is false. This is the one that I like the most, and Sang-moon uses in the ZXX false style to a mirror reflection of the letters that they stand in the alphabet. Like if you click on the A on your keyboard, what you see on your screen would be a very large Z that conceals a very small letter A. So, which also means that if you happen to click Z on your keyboard, what you end up with is a very large A that conceals a very small Z. So in that sense, when you use these different styles of ZXX type system, you end up, while being perceivable to the human eye, while being totally legible to the human eye, you also, in a way, conceal the actual textual content of your communication from the online surveillance systems, which, by the way, are kind of coming embedded with all of the computers that we used for over the last 2 decades. It's actually feeding off of a very archaic, very simple system that is called optical character recognition, which is abbreviated as OCR and always comes embedded in Adobe Acrobat Reader or so on. And which, as I said at the beginning of this project, I told you that it tries to understand the letter forms and tries to recognize how differently they could be formulated, but there is always going to be a certain threshold where you can overcome these barriers of recognition in a way, which also Sang-moon feeds off in this project as well. So there's a video of him just formulating these typeface systems, but I think I'm gonna have to skip it now due to the, otherwise I won't be able to finish this presentation and you'll probably be here for all eternity. So I'm just going to go on. And in this workshop series that I've been holding with Erman Yilmaz, we asked students from the different parts of the world and different parts of Turkey to come up with their own systems which they can use on their own to conceal their online communication. And the systems that Sang Moon comes up with really proves us that you don't really have to always conceal the letter form through the power of design, but sometimes you can do it through the power of a very simple logic as well. For example, in this first type system that a student has designed, all you can do is just to add asterisk at the end of each letter that you type in. Yet again, as a human viewer, what you see here is the word asterisk, but what an online surveillance system would recognize would be just A asterisk S asterisk T asterisk E asterisks, and it won't be able to produce the word asterisk in one gulp, which is what this participant tried to achieve by designing this. Another system was called Scribble, and what this system was basically doing was to scribble the letters in a word in respect to its alphabetical order. And just for the sake of the viewer, she just placed the number of these, where those letters were placed in the actual word that was designated in the first place. For example, in the demonstration of the word Scrabble, what we see is to scribbling the letters in that word in an alphabetical order first, but then just for the sake of the viewer, the participant was keeping the number of letters where those letters were being placed in that certain word or sentence or whatever. But it goes on, and I won't probably be talking about all of them. Just I can mention their names, and maybe you can understand the certain logic behind them. This was called crossword, and taking off its reference from crosswords puzzles. And it was treating each letter as a 4-digit metric system. So for example, if you happen to click the letter A on your keyboard, what you end up with is this 4-digit metric system, which just puts the 3 letters that comes after itself just to distract the online surveillance system, so that if you happen to use this type system with 0 kerning and 0 what was the English word for it? I don't remember, but I mean the line spacing, I think. What you end up with is these certain square systems, these certain square digits that is there to distract the online surveillance system, but also remain legible to the human eye. So if you happen to follow the black digits in this crossword system, you can easily read the word crossword. But what an online surveillance system would end up with is C, Ch, R, R, S, O, S, Sh, and just going on and on, so that you could conceal your online communicational content yet again. So I'm just going to skip this very fast. And just a week ago in Eindhoven, in the Netherlands, we were there as participants, and one of the projects that I've seen in the Dutch Design Week was actually trying to focus focusing on the same intentions to conceal their certain contents from unwanted eyes. A group that is called Ojik and Strip has come up with a system where they use their devices, their digital devices, to sketch certain augmented graffitis or artworks or whatever. So there's also a video that I took, and I mean, if you happen to look at that wall, it's just an empty wall where you can see anything. But you can turn your own mobile device into a certain spray can that you can take whatever you like, only in the augmented realm. So it can also be used as a means of protest in the age of new media as well. I mean, we are coming from generations that has been taught that the protests could mainly work on the physical realm through certain measures, through certain conveyors, mediums, media, or whatever. Like we are the sons and daughters of people who stressed and expressed their concerns through, let's say, scarves, through wall paintings, through banners, and so on. But living in the 21st century doesn't really take us away from those concerns, perhaps, but it just really reshapes the way we deliver those concerns through. So, for example, a very traditional, very familiar print poster could be used as a way to conceal the content as well. This poster is designed by me 3 years ago, and it actually conceals a remark that I am in love with, that has also been uttered by a Dutch designer that's called Rudy van der Lans. He is one of the 2 founders of Emigra Type Foundry, and what this poster conceals is that if you can't read something, that is not probably been written for you. So in order for me to deliver this message to the viewer of this poster, I just place very abstract embodiments of those words, and also place the number of those words and what those letters would basically assign to in the most conventional letter forms. So, for example, in this first word, it says bir, which means a or one in Turkish. And what you can see here is that on the abstract embodiment of the letter B, viewer is being navigated that it is the first letter of this word, this green word, and this first letter of this first green word is a letter B in the alphabet. So after, let's say, spending a few minutes with the poster that you are viewing at the moment, you can finally understand what this poster has been concealing from you. Also, this is another way to maybe, a website might be another way to conceal certain visual or audiovisual or textual content from the viewer or from the unwanted eyes as well. This is a project that I've done with an artist called Çağlar Kanzık. And Çağlar Kanzık is a video artist who recorded over 500 videos from Gezi Park protests back in 2015 in Istanbul. And the reason why he was recording those videos was to create a certain online museum where everyone can reach the actual goings-on of these anti-government protests. And what we thought at first was to come up with a website that really conceals its visual content, which is its primary content. And after, let's say, after spending 5 to 10 minutes with the website, it started to block its own frame from the viewer's eye, just to annihilate itself over time, like an expiration date of a website. so that you can just interact with that certain audiovisual content in a certain frame of time, which is almost equal to the frame of time a single video on the website would offer you. All of the videos that he recorded was around 1 minute or 1.5 minute span, so that it was the amount, it was almost equal to the amount of time you can spend on this website. So that, I mean, his idea was to just to, well, I don't think this, yeah, I don't think my time and my communicational skills would be enough to deliver the reasoning that he had in mind. But in the very short and simple way, he was coming from an idea that if a museum, if an online museum behaves differently from a museum, the concept of museum that we are so familiar with in the physical world, then how it would shape our habits as a consumer of the online realm in a way. Well, by the way, how much time do I have left? 5 minutes, really. I'm so disappointed. Anyway, well, the shape of things. Well, one of the reasons, as I said at the beginning of this presentation, one of the reasons why I chose this title was to understand the history of time, the history of humankind, and how it really communicates his needs or his concerns or his ideas or emotions or thoughts. And emojis are actually one of the categories that humankind really expresses himself or herself through over many centuries now. And I mean, if you think about it, a cave painting could be considered as the first examples of an emoji where people were trying to deliver, for example, if there was a mammoth over there that I shouldn't really be fucking around with, I would tell another caveman friend of mine that he shouldn't really be going in that direction, because otherwise he would have to deal with a mammoth as I did, and now putting up on the wall of a cave. So, but, I mean, emojis hasn't really started with the digital media as we thought it is. I mean, if you look at the history of print ads or the history of print communication, you can see many examples of communicational pieces which uses to replace a certain word or a certain emotion or a certain idea with a visual that it really represents. And when you talk about emojis, you don't really talk about something so abstract or so complicated or something that you really have to find your way around with. I mean, when you see an emoji that laughs its ass off while crying, it's what that person is trying to deliver to you. There is no special meaning behind it, really. It's the most archaic, most direct way to communicate what you have in mind or what you are going through at the time, which is not so different from what the cave people were trying to achieve among each other, perhaps. But also, I mean, today, the way those emojis are being used could be to express a lifetime emotion on a Facebook live video as well. I mean, these examples are from Facebook live news. The first one is from the Syrian border, and after an explosion has gone through, so many people have actually expressed their feelings lifetime in the comment section of this Facebook live news. And this is from London subway attack. Maybe you remember it from a couple years back. And I mean, you can see the happy emoji, happy faces there as well, which is kind of fucked up when you think about it. This is, again, from London. Another emoji project that I have encountered with at the Dutch Design Week was titled Through the Emoji-Looking Glass by a young artist called Lara Chapman. And what she was trying to achieve was that, I mean, she was looking at these old paintings in the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam through the understanding she's having now. And she was trying to compare certain elements in those paintings with what the emoji library offers us at the moment. This is the one that I like the most. Actually, what she's been trying to achieve here was that until a few years back, the only kind of human emoji that you had was a white-skinned emoji, and you didn't have any other option to express any other skin color or anything like that. But even if we have 6 different skin colors right now, it's still, I mean, how dark you are still defined by how white that first emoji was, was like in the first place. I mean, no, not really. Probably, I'll have to double check. You may be right. I mean, I'm not going to dispute that. But still, it doesn't really take us away from what she's trying to achieve through this project, which is, she was looking at the evolution of skin race in emoji making. She was trying to use that methods, and she was trying to apply those methods to the paintings that you can see in the Rijksmuseum, where, for example, this is a very white, certainly a very white guy from a few centuries back. And in the augmented videos that he installed in place, the artist was trying to convey what would happen to the skin of this person if she tried to change his skin in a way the emojis has evolved over time. And the skin colors that you end up with are actually ridiculous, and really reminds you that however many skin colors that you add in emoji library, there's still going to be a good amount of people who would feel left out from the main domain of skin color understanding in a way. So also, well, I'm not going to talk about this, but this is something she was trying to prove through the way Apple has designed this peach emoji in the first place, which is so much bot-like. And after the protests that has gone online, Apple has actually changed the design of the peach emoji, which you should really look up online. But after the protest to that change, they had to return to this initial design, which is still stands there as the hypocrisy that Apple has been trying to convey through their own emoji set. I know that different brands there has their own different emoji sets and so on, but the main understanding are being shaped through what we would call WASPs, this white Anglo-Saxon, males in a way. Yeah? Yeah, Protestants, yeah. Yeah, well, I think I have run out of time, but there are still so many slides that I put into this presentation, which I kind of regret that I won't be able to talk about, but I think you would be kind of happy that I would stop talking now. Well, anyway, just be done. Let's be done with the emoji at least. Well, emojis can also shape the way we understand something so traditional as the poster medium, which, I mean, as we understand today, should not necessarily be, may not necessarily be in print, but even when it's even when it's designed on a digital realm, we still try to imitate the habits that we have in the physical poster making. For example, even in this poster ratio that we see, I mean, this is a very regular 50 to 70 or 70 to 100 centimeters poster space. And I can't really begin to explain why we are still using these ratios, imitating those ratios in the digital realm, which should provoke its own habits since the first day that they're out there, but for some reason haven't. So, for example, I mean, in a world that we use 1080 to 1920 pixel stories, or these squarish Instagram posts, I can't really understand why we are not designing the posters in that way as well. But even if we accept the fact that, you know, we humans are actually too stubborn to change our habits and so on, the capabilities, the new media and the new communication has been offering us also have been shaping the way we design the content of those posters as well. I mean, this is a sketch that we have done at the Wieden+Kennedy Amsterdam a few months back for a poster show called Lost and Not Found that was focusing on the animals that has gone extinct over the last century. And the way we designed these posters at first was the way you see them on the screen right now, which is to tell a story through the power of words and emojis. Each poster is telling the story of a different animal that has gone extinct. And the only way that you can understand at first sight which animal is being talked about is the animal, are the words that is being typeset in bold style. What I was curious about when I was studying, when I was teaching typography a few years back, was that from the first year of college or from even way back, we understand that, let's say, something so rooted like literature cannot be really touched apart from the way that the author of that certain text has tailored that piece of information around with. So, but what happens to a literary text when we disrupt the text, disrupts the certain points of that text with emojis? And I was curious if you would still be able to pursue this piece of text the same way we pursue a non-interrupted literary text that has only been tailored with letters and words and so on. So if you want to see the outcomes of this lesson, this emoji land lesson, you can check my website, and there are certain examples that you can find there. But basically what the students have been trying to achieve was to pick a certain literary text that they are familiar with and try to reshape it with emojis and try to figure out if the humankind in 2019 are still able to understand the text as they have understood a textual piece of item throughout the thousands of years, perhaps. So yeah, I mean, there's still a lot to go. Maybe I should just click and click and click and click and click. And so yeah, thank you for bearing with me. And I think this really marks the end of my presentation, which really didn't kind of make sense when I stopped midway. But I think there's a certain understanding that is flowing through the nostrils and eyes and cheeks and faces of you good people in the audience. Well, anyway, yeah, this is the end of my presentation.
Ребята, если есть вопросы, пожалуйста, задавайте. Девушка с микрофоном в зале, мы ждем. Если что, я могу перевести. Ну или мы... Хорош, конец, да? Бесконечная презентация. No evening.
No, I'll just go on clicking it.
Please. Если возможно, по-английски, если нет, переведу.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Maybe I will speak out the main point that we all may have not gotten. Can you please tell what is the main point of all these cases you stated? Because they were so different, so like unique each other. What is the point they make together?
Well, my main point is actually that, I mean, even if we talk about the capabilities of the new media today, and even if they are going to be evolved in 100 years from now or 1,000 years from now, actually the way we deliver our ideas and thoughts and emotions and concerns or whatever are pretty much the same. It's only the medium, it's only the conveyor element that really changes and shapes the understanding of how we should really tailor those elements with. But other than that, I mean, for example, I was hoping
Turn off the presentation.
I was hoping to show a project called The Big Atlas of LA Swimming Pools. And even if you think about the concept of an atlas, I mean, in past decades or past century, the only way you can really interact with the certain area of the world would be to go to an atlas or just to write an atlas that would convey certain pieces of information to the viewer, to the reader, or whatever. Even as a viewer, it would be the only way you would get that piece of retain that piece of information from that atlas. But for example, in an atlas project that has been done in the 21st century, you can still find out about a certain place in the planet, but in a totally different way that has been shaped with the new capabilities of media, new mediums, and so on. So the main understanding behind the presentation was to find out about these peculiarities, these similarities, or sometimes the dilemmas that has been going on between generations or centuries or people. Yeah. I'm not even sure that if I made more sense or less sense by replying that question, but yeah, I hope that.
More questions?
Yes.
Еще вопросы есть в зале?
By the way, this is a project that depicts the swimming pools in Los Angeles. And if you want to have more information about it, you can go to the websites of Benedict Gross or Joseph Lee, who are the authors of this project. And it's one of the craziest projects that I've seen in the 21st century, really. And they are using one of the most conventional mediums that is ever out there, which is the book. Book as a medium. But it doesn't really refrain you from coming up with a fucking great idea. By the way, there are 43,000 swimming pools in Los Angeles, and documented each of these 43,000 swimming pools and redrew them and put them in an atlas, which helped the
Shape.
state of California greatly as well. The government has actually contacted them to get that piece of information so that they can put them up in their archives and so on. But it's funny that they are really trusting two simple dudes in having this kind of information in a way. And this is the page that I like the most. These are actually the 43,000 swimming pools by their outlines, just put on top of each other. And in the end, as you go on with the book, what you end up with is this shape, which also states the cover design of this book as well. This was the main inspiration behind this project, really. Is there anyone in the audience who watched this film? It's a lovely, lovely film. You should really watch it. I mean, I know that it sounds so silly, and the whole film is about this half-naked guy, who is Burt Lancaster, by the way, who sets his mind to go all the way back home by swimming through people's private swimming pools. May I just show you the trailer of this film, this silly film? Yeah, really. Is there sound now or? Oh, no, different. No. I'm so sad. Anyway, you should look it up online. It's a beautiful film.
Go on. Sound is ready.
Play the
Go
video.
on.
We have a sound.
Yeah, but I think we have time issues as well, and it's silly for me to show you the trailer of a movie for no plausible reason whatsoever. So, yeah. Anyway.
Еще вопрос есть, ребят?
Yes, I have a question about the peach and this child. Don't you think that when someone see in a peach, the S, is there problem of the man who see it? Why so many protests? What is your personal opinion about that?
I really didn't understand the question.
I mean, when someone see in your example, it was the fruit, the peach, yes, and
the fruit pictures.
No, fruit.
No, it's a
The peach emoji.
Yeah, the peach. Peach. And when all those people, as I understood, seen in this the S, yes, don't you think that that this is problem of these people, or what do you think about that?
Well, you really have to see the videos for yourself, the videos that the artist Lara Chapman has made. But basically, what she was trying to achieve by that few minutes of video is that until a certain time, especially, let's say, until a decade ago or 5 years ago, the shapes and especially the communicational shapes that we see on, let's say, emojis or ad campaigns or whatever were being purposefully drawn in a way that would transmit a certain sexual connotation. And it was the norm, even all people from all those different countries know the statement that sex sells. And I mean, at the early years of the emoji library, you would really go and find for yourself that certain emojis were drawn in a way that would hint at a really nasty thought, or what we would politically correct way say as sexual connotation. So what she was really making fun of was how this understanding is being changed after the era of Twitter and after how the mass reaction really shaped the way the companies, these big companies, are producing their visual or textual content now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
More questions? Еще вопросы? Нет? Teşekkür Thank
Ah,
you.
yeah, yeah. I thank you for
Thank you,
really
sir.
standing up with me. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.